Coming up on today's show.
Yeah, before you begin sorting and purging, you really want to know where you're going to put those items.
But then what? I mean, if it's like my house, about an hour later it's messy again, so.
You've already stopped the problem from growing again. But there's definitely upkeep that's needed.
How to quickly organize and clean up your office today. This is part 2 on keeping you organized. Welcome back to Keeping You Organized, part 2 of a 2-part episode, and we kind of did a little bait and switch with you last time. We said we were going to tell you how you could do your office, get it organized and cleaned up in one day, which you really can. You can do it today, but it took us 2 episodes because we had so much information. And we're bringing back Amy Olson. Amy, welcome back to Keeping You Organized.
Thank you.
On our first episode, we talked really about kind of the setup to this whole thing, creating some zones, right? You want to just recap a little bit about how we create zones in our office workspace?
Absolutely. Yeah, before you begin sorting and purging, you really want to know where you're going to put those items. So what we do is we create active file zones with action, pending, and reference files.
Yep.
And then you want to create zones for incoming paperwork from colleagues and any active project files that you might be working on.
Great. Okay, so then we get into the sort and purge. We talked about that on the last episode too, about what are some of those techniques for sorting and purging?
Right, making sure that garbage can is plenty empty so you can start getting rid of some items. I do want to point out though that before you start purging paperwork, especially in a corporate environment, that you reference any records retention policy that they may have. You certainly don't want to be getting rid of something that should be going into a records box and then being stored off-site.
Great.
But otherwise, getting rid of those trinket items, junk that's accumulated on your desk, reference materials, catalogs that vendors have dropped off, things that really aren't serving your day-to-day shouldn't be on your desk. They can be stored away, but clear of your desk.
Okay, so now we're ready to move into the next area. What would we call this?
We would call it the cleaning part, which for me would be the fun part. I enjoy this part.
Okay, yeah, some people like that.
It's really, now you've removed a lot of items from your desk, hopefully, in file drawers, and you've probably noticed that dust has accumulated. There's some unsightly germs that you can't see lurking around. So really wiping down surface areas, getting those compressed can of air to go through your keyboard, really give it a deep cleaning. And I think this is an important part of the organization part, because if you have a clean space, you're far more likely to keep it organized. It's going to really start to feel like it's yours. Once you have things wiped down, shiny and new, personalize it. And I say don't go overboard. You don't need every picture of your kids, throughout 18 years, and you don't need every little item that you've ever accumulated while on vacation, but something that really brings you joy, something that brings you happiness. Make sure that you have those items out. Again, it's about creating an environment that inspires you to be productive.
Yes. So are there any particular cleaning products that you like to use? I mean, are you one of these eco-friendly cleaners, or is it just the good old Windex, or what? I mean, what works well for most office stuff?
Well, I would say definitely be careful when using Windex or any specialty product on wood desks or laminates. That can tend to actually have an after effect. It can dull the surface. So go to water, a little soap, a little water. The idea is really just to get that dust off. Now, when you're talking about your handset for your phone or your keyboard, use a disinfectant wipe that is safe to use on your electronics.
Yeah, and I suppose this is obvious, but for your keyboard and your monitor, you probably don't want to use any chemicals on that, right?
Right, yeah, definitely, consult the manufacturer's recommendations, or somebody else in the office who is maybe more tech savvy.
Yeah, and I've heard before from cleaning people, and we've done whole episodes on cleaning, that you kind of want to start high, and because as dust goes down, and the last thing you're doing is going around and maybe vacuuming it just to get all
Well, and you'll be surprised at what pops up when you start using that compressed can of air. So I would say that's the first thing you do, is start spraying out your keyboard and some other items with that, because that will tend to fly.
Okay, well, good. Now, when we were talking about this episode, you kind of had cleaning and personalizing, or personalization in one category. Kind of explain what you mean by that.
Sure. The idea is just to kind of put the cherry on top.
Okay.
You know, you don't want an office that's so sterile and uninviting that you aren't inspired to work in that space. So whereas maybe a lot of people think if I just put files away and it's completely cleaned off, then that's organized. Well, no, organized is really whatever works for you.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel that way also about your office and how it should look. Just making that more about who you are.
Yeah. What are some unique things that maybe some of your clients have used? Maybe it's a picture, maybe it's something else that made it unique for them.
Sure. You know, I have one client who was taking art classes in their off time, and there is a sculpture, though I didn't necessarily know what this sculpture was, but it had a lot of meaning to them. And though kind of maybe wasn't my cup of tea, this is just something, again, that kind of got them thinking long term.
Yeah.
That maybe I'm in this office today, but that's not...
Yeah,
you know,
it's inspiring to them.
They're working towards something.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, I think we're going to we got to address the question: what happens after today? Because obviously, we can get it all done in a day with all these tips. But what about a week from now and 2 weeks from now? So we're with Amy Olson talking about how to get your office cleaned up, organized today, and we'll be right back.
Now there's a place just for you. Life can be busy, and you still have to keep it all together. That's why you like to be organized and in control. Introducing MyOrganized.life, a special place where you can get ideas and solutions to organize what's important to you, your important papers, your important decisions, your important life events. We show you the ideas and products to stay organized in your life. See what's new. Stop by and say hello. Visit us at any time at www.myorganized.life. It's just for you. MyOrganized.life by Smead. Find us at www.myorganized.life. MyOrganized.life.
We're back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about getting your office, your space, the place you like to work, organized and cleaned up today. We're not beating around the bush. We really want to get it done in one day. But so far, Amy Olson, we've been talking a lot about the steps, and we've got great steps between this podcast and the last episode. But now let's say we've gotten through. We've got it done. But then what? I mean, if it's like my house, about an hour later, it's messy again. So how do you keep up with this?
Sure, and that's a common concern. Yeah. I think by creating that incoming paperwork zone, from colleagues or family, that is going to help already. Yeah. So I think you've already stopped the problem from growing again. But there's definitely upkeep that's needed. My recommendation would be, at the end of each day, whether that's a work day or before you settle down for the evening with your family, take 10 to 15 minutes, go through your to-dos for the following day, put items away on your desk, look at that action pending and reference file. Is there anything in there that needs to move into a different file? Is there something that needs to go to a colleague? Deliver that at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Make sure you are clear of those tasks. Yeah. If there are any project files that you're working on the next day, make sure that they're ready to go in that desk drawer or where you've decided to keep those. And have just a very simple list of what you need to do the following day. When you come into your office the next morning or the next afternoon, whenever you're in there, and you see that just one day, you come in and you see that it's still clean, there's no papers on your chair surprising you.
Feels good.
It's instantly going to boost your ability to be just as organized the following day. Right. It's addicting. Yeah. As each day passes, it becomes easier.
Well, let's go back. In our last episode, we talked about your transition. You were an executive assistant for C-level executives. What did you do for them at the end of the day? Did they come in with like a nice agenda for the day? What did you prepare for them so that they could be ready the next day?
Sure. Everything was different depending on who you're working with. They all have their own processes. But the main thing is that they knew exactly what they needed to do in the morning before the lunch hour. Oh, okay. Nothing new was going to enter their schedule. Nothing new was going to surprise them before then.
Yeah.
It's a little productivity management tool where you don't check your emails and you don't invite anything new into your workspace until your first break of the day.
Oh, okay. Now, that's a nice tip we haven't heard before. So let's say that's that first 4 hours, and then do you apply the same thing to the second 4 hours and say, nothing new in that until the next day?
Correct. So that's when in that 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the day, you're really looking at, okay, what came up today? Does it take priority over what I thought I was going to be doing tomorrow? Or can I, can I adjust that stack of project files that or is there something more pertinent in the action file that I need to take care of? But the idea is that you're really looking at those three, the action, pending, and reference file every day.
Yeah.
At the end of the day to know what you really need to be doing the following day.
And one thing we haven't talked about, but just touch on this quickly, is calendars. How does a calendar fit into this whole system?
Sure. I know people who use paper calendars, and that is the best method for them. I know people who do everything digitally through Microsoft Outlook or Google Calendar. It's really what works best for you, but I strongly encourage people, no matter what you do with a calendar, that you don't have 100 Post-it notes stacked all over your desk with things to do, but that you really 1 to 4 items the following day that you really want to accomplish. List them out in the priority you've given them, and then that's your to-do for the next day.
Yeah. Oh, these are great tips. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap it up here. Why don't you tell people how they can get a hold of you, your work capabilities, and who you work with, and I don't know if you just work in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, or do you do any virtual organizing, and how people can get a hold of you.
Sure. So you can get a hold of me at lifedonesimply.com. Okay. I am working primarily in the metro area, but I'm willing to travel out a bit outstate, depending on my schedule. Yeah. I specialize in workplace productivity, so if you know anyone who has some productivity struggles in their office or just needs to get that kickstart on paper management, that's my expertise.
Awesome.
And they can also reach me at 651-605-5540.
Awesome. Well, Amy, this has been a great 2-part program. Folks, I want you to make sure you do the whole thing, and then after you've gone through episode 1 or part 1 and part 2, then take that day, block it off, and I think you're going to be feeling really good about this. You're going to feel great that your office and workspace is organized. And then after you've got that done, come back and catch our next show on keeping you organized.